I'm Avery Chatmon. I am an artist, friend, and volunteer at ESMoA here in the front room in Krystal Chang's installation, We Are All Living in the Garden. Here to learn more about her work, her process, her journey as an artist. Krystal, it's so great to be here with you.
Thanks, it's great to be here.
How would you describe your creative process?
So my background is in architecture. I've worked in architecture, construction, writing. I've done landscape design, floral installations, public art projects, obviously. And so what I'm trying to do with all of this and to create an art practice is to create this sort of continuous practice that really draws on all the different fields. So where my work and thinking in one area informs my work and thinking in another area. I think what sort of drives it is, or what I'm trying to do with my art practice is really to create experiences for people, to create these sort of unexpected moments of beauty or magic really in everyday life, so that they might see something in here and then it changes how they see something out in the world.
What have you been thinking about during your residency?
So I started out my residency with just the idea of working with the flora of California, and my first step was sort of to think about what I can do in this space, and which was sort of daunting in the beginning. And then I realized that I already had all the materials that I needed. I've been collecting like leaves and flowers and pine cones for years for like no specific purpose, just taking up space in my apartment. Mm-hmm. And I realized I could bring them all together here, for a common purpose. And it's about sort of recontextualizing it and reframing it. And similarly, for the photograph series that I have, Flora of the Free Republic of California, those were photos that I've been taking for years and had never really thought about using them in any specific way. But I took this field botany class years ago while I was still working in construction, just because I was interested in it. Mm-hmm. And we took field trips to the Santa Monica Mountains, to the tide pools in Palos Verdes, Bologna Creek, Anza Borrego Desert, and all the way up north to Bodega Bay, and also to the Lancaster Poppy Preserve. So we were seeing all these different sort of habitats around us. And it was just sort of amazing to learn about all these things that surround us that like most people don't know anything about. Like you can maybe like see and recognize some plants that you just know sort of from seeing it, but you might not know what it's called or how it grows or anything. And so I really wanted to sort of illuminate all of that. And I realized I already had all these photos that I could use for this, and the only sort of new, putting it all together was new, obviously, and then the other new part was to do this photo installation that I have also with the light boxes, and so I created a new installation for that. But I think it's all about sort of spreading what I learned, everything about the background of the plants, like the cultural history, the how they were used by indigenous people, their names, and also their own biology, how they grow, how they live. And what's amazing is you realize how many different ways there are to be in the world.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm just thinking of you living among boxes and boxes of all this beautiful flora and fauna. And so I know that obviously we're here in front of the work, maybe freed up some of that space.
It's true.
But other than a little bit of a freeing up of space, how has the residency supported your art making?
They've been so supportive this whole time. They've been like just so open and receptive to like any idea that I've brought up, just having like obviously the space to do this in, the time, and obviously the audience that it brings. And it's great because, there are all these like ideas that I've been thinking about for a long time. So for example, I've always wanted to do this, it's sort of plotted as like a midsummer plant festival kind of thing. And they've really made that happen in a way, like even in these times. And it's just been really amazing to see it all come together.
So you started in architecture, and you're drawing from so many different fields, and bringing those together into a cohesive practice. So I'm very interested to hear how the path formed from your identity as an artist, from architecture to artist, to your current practice today.
Yeah, I have to say, I never really thought of myself as an artist. And I think I'm only now sort of starting to embrace that idea. I think I have an easier time to think of myself as a public artist because I think the work that I do is always sort of for other people, like it's for the public. I don't think I would be at home making art if it was just for me, basically. It is about sort of spreading sort of a way of thinking, I think. I guess to me, art either shows you something new or it shows you a different way of looking at something that is familiar, that you already know. And so I just try to create like what I want to see in the world, basically.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, that just makes me think about your flower machine project.
Yeah.
It seems to be, on the nose exactly what you're exactly what you're describing.
That was really fun because it was, so the flower machine was this sort of 8-foot by 8-foot cube. And basically people would come up to it, they would draw a flower, present it to the machine, and the machine would give them a flower in return. And just to be clear, I was inside, so I was the machine, and some people were like very confused about that, and they kept being like, but where's the machine? And it was just really amazing because people, would come by and they would like see all the drawings that other people had done, and they would be so amazed and be like, oh my God, I could never do anything like that. And then once they actually did it, they would surprise themselves. And it was just really heartwarming to see that. And like they were so proud of themselves. And then it was also magical for them to like give that to the machine and get a real flower in return. And a lot of people were like, oh my God, this is exactly what I was thinking of. Like, how did you know? Yeah, so that was a really great experience.
Wow. So inspired by people, interaction, community for sure, art in public, and in community. What else inspires you?
I draw a lot from nature, obviously. I think just like all the different forms, I think like nature sort of trumps everything, I don't think there's anything, I mean, I know there's nothing I can do that is, would be better than anything nature can do. And so I sort of work in service of nature and try to bring that to more people. There is this line by Mary Oliver, who's a poet, and she wrote, attention is the beginning of devotion. And I think about that a lot. And I think like what I'm doing here is trying to like show a different way of looking. So you look at like, a leaf that is on the sidewalk, but you see it differently once you get like up close to it and actually look at it in detail.
Yeah, I think the first time that I looked at We Are All Living in the Garden, or experienced it, I think is even a better word. I just thought, wow, this is really, this is my street. This is my environment suspended here for me in a way that really does inspire, I feel like a level of holiness almost. It reminds me of the Mary Oliver quote of the devotion there. So yeah, I've definitely seen that, experience that for myself. Yeah.
That's perfect, because I want that. I did want it to feel sort of like the wind just like brought in all of like California.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to point out there is one leaf in the installation that I did not bring in myself, but blew in off the street. So I felt like it deserved its own place here.
How does ESMoA's mission to spread the spark of creativity resonate with you?
I love the mission. I think it sort of like resonates with what I'm trying to do. I don't think there's any like one way or right way to be creative. I think people get intimidated because they think like it means they have to draw or paint or write or something. And I think being creative can really just be a way of looking at the world and just being curious and questioning about what's around you.
Yeah, and I think we are all living in the garden definitely facilitates exactly that. So thank you so much,
Thank
Krystal.
you. Thanks for having me.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple quick questions.
Sure.
About the piece.
Yeah.
So, number one, about the jacaranda, because I thought it was intentional choice to be kind of in the center. And
Oh
it's
wait,
pretty much-
this one?
Oh, that's not jacaranda.
No, this is an orchid actually.
Oh, okay. The
But
orchid.
it's funny that you mentioned that. I know because of the color. So there is
Yeah.
actually jacaranda up there. It's the really tiny guys that are
Okay.
kind of darker.
Got it. But
This was actually an orchid. But it's interesting you noticed that because that was the very last piece that I placed.
Ah,
So
okay.
yeah, so it was
Okay.
sort of like a focal point.
Okay,
actually.
okay.
So I was trying to create sort of swaths or paths of movement, so you can see like with the leaves there.
And what are these?
These are acanthus flowers. So they grow in these like long stalks.
Okay.
And also, it's interesting because the colors have shifted a little bit
Right.
since they've been up. Because these used to have a little bit more lavender in them. I think
okay.
you can maybe see it a little bit.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I can see it.
These were California poppy, and these were bright orange
Wow.
when I put them up. But now I think they're just faded with the sun. Yeah, I think it's part of the process.
Yeah.
I think it's also part of like the ephemeral nature of things, which I like. Having to learn to let go. You know, like I would probably prefer it to still be bright orange, but recognizing that this is what happens. And then it sort of makes you appreciate that orange moment more.
Yeah.
And sort of remember it being there.
Okay.